Matt Miller, I start with you because you and I were actually, and Jonathan was with us too, together Friday night. And we started this conversation, Matt Miller, about just how much Republicans can try to ram through in their absence of shame, in their absence of a conscience, in their absence of any accountability for their own prior standards set forth and uttered over and over again on tape and in interviews. But maybe what they didn't see coming, Matt Miller, was that an overwhelming majority of Americans, 62%, 8 in 10 Democrats, and 5 in 10 Republicans are against ramming this through.
Yeah, and the question, of course, is whether they're going to care about that or not. I thought Joe Biden in his comments yesterday really hit the tone right in being both realistic and idealistic at the same time. Realistic in recognizing that even in spite of that type of public opposition, and even in spite of what they said 4 years ago, how clear the Republicans were about this supposed principle that they invented, that they were going to live by, that Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell don't care, that they live by a rule of might makes right. And if they can jam this through, they're going to try to jam it through. But at the same time, Biden was idealistic in appealing not just to Senate Republicans. Let's be clear. He wasn't talking just to Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski and maybe Mitt Romney and some of the other Republicans that might be on the fence. He was talking to voters and talking to the American people. And I think framing the stakes here about how far Republicans are willing to go to abuse power, number one, and number two, what's at stake if they are able to get this entrenched supermajority on the Supreme Court in terms of access to health care, access to abortion, climate change, so many other issues. I think what he's doing is making a clear argument to voters that, look, Republicans may do this. They may power this through either before the election or in a lame duck session. But if they do, you should pay attention and you should act accordingly and you should vote accordingly, and there will be consequences.
And, Jonathan Lemire, I think what is surprising to sort of political types like myself on both sides is how the sort of the reversal of this issue. And some of it seems to be rooted in the fact that if you're animated by the courts, that's what lets you hold your nose and stick with Trump's, repugnant personal conduct and unpresidential behavior because you feel like you got what you signed up for. You got your judicial picks. But let me read this from NBC News. For decades, Republicans have galvanized voters around reshaping the Supreme Court, and they've benefited from it at the ballot box. But in a stark reversal, polls indicate that Democrats have the edge this year on the issue. National and battleground state surveys taken before Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg died Friday showed that voters trust Joe Biden more than President Donald Trump to pick a Supreme Court nominee, that the Democrats rate the court as more important to their votes than the Republicans do.
Well, let's remember, Nicole, that though right now, of course, evangelicals and conservative Christians, for the most part, march in lockstep with Donald Trump. That was not the case in 2015, 2016. And that's why he put out that list of potential Supreme Court nominees to try to reassure them who may have their doubts about a New York billionaire with a tawdry personal life. And then we saw him, of course, update that list just a week or so ago. That he knows, and Mitch McConnell as well, this is a huge part of their legacy, remaking the federal judiciary. And the president, of course, has had 2 Supreme Court picks already. The last one, Justice Kavanaugh, of course, led to a contentious confirmation hearing battle that really right before the 2018 midterms. And we're staring now at perhaps one even more consequential. You're right, certainly. In recent decades, Republicans have been more animated by a fight to reshape the judiciary, to put someone on the Supreme Court. But I think it's telling that this may cut differently this time. Yes, the president on Saturday night in his rally in North Carolina, and according to our reporting, he has told people he was absolutely delighted at the fill that seat chants that went up from the crowd, who wanted, of course, him to forge forward with replacing Justice Ginsburg this year, to nominate someone and move forward. And they intend to. We expect the White House to do so in the coming days. But that's not the only party that has reacted with incredible enthusiasm and energy to the fight about this vacant seat. Act Blue, which, of course, is the Democrats' fundraising organization, had posted record highs in terms of money raised in recent days after Ginsburg died. And certainly polling suggests that the Democrats are going to matter. This matters, too, for a variety of reasons, for some seminal cases that could be on the dockets that could change the future of the nation for generations. The Affordable Care Act, certainly now on the ballot. The idea of rights to an abortion, Roe versus Wade, certainly on the ballot. And indeed, any potential legal challenge to this election, to 2020 election, and we certainly expect that to happen, would also go before the Supreme Court. So there is extraordinary energy here on both sides. And I think the early analysis that this was certainly going to be good for President Trump, that he would come out ahead in this with the vacant seat, that may be premature. It's hard to know exactly how this could cut.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.